Hi folks, I'm just going to run through portfolios 3 and 4 that I'm expecting to see from you. Obviously I've done this as a live class but some people were absent, so I'm just making the recording available for everybody. Okay, so portfolio piece 3 is the essay, which is focusing on a comparison between Durkheim and Weber. What I did say in the class was make sure you didn't start speaking about Marx. For some reason every year somebody mentions Marx in this essay. You didn't need to mention him in here. There's no Marx available that I can give you for talking about Marx's theory on working organisations. So focus solely on Durkheim and Weber, and you've got to talk about their differences in terms of their theoretical ideas surrounding work in modern society from the 19th century onwards, and looking at those keywords: increased specialisation and rationalisation. Now, of course, increased specialisation is a Durkheim term, and rationalisation is Weber's. So you need to make sure that you're trying to compare and contrast the similarities and differences between these two different perspectives on working organisations. If you think back to lecture number 9, which was the overview, that gives you, I did make some pretty significant hints there on where you can find the similarities and differences between these two. But make sure that you do address the following statement in the actual text, which is: from the 19th century, work in modern society became characterised by increased specialisation and rationalisation. Your word count is slightly larger than your last portfolio piece, which was 500. This one is now 750, and it needs to be referenced appropriately. I want to make that point particularly clear because portfolio pieces 1 and 2 weren't done that great in terms of the referencing for the majority of the class, so please make sure that you are asking for help if you're struggling with referencing rather than just submitting it as is. So I would expect to see in-text citations and a bibliography on your last page. This one, in terms of how much it's worth, is worth 30 marks, which again is significantly more than your portfolios pieces 1 and 2. So it will tip the balance slightly more. So what I'm really looking for you to be looking at here, the division of labour and increased specialisation from Durkheim, and the change in solidarity from Durkheim, that society has changed. Organic and mechanical solidarity would be expected to be in that, related to working organisations. I would also expect to see the likes of the move in social action, from Weber, from pre-industrial to rational instrumental social action. Also things like bureaucracy, the iron cage, and Durkheim, you would be looking to see anime in there as well. Those 3 points about clarity and sophistication, I would expect at this level that you're able to use sociological language and concepts adequately and properly. The better essays, the ones that get higher scores, are ones that synthesise the key concepts and ideas. So rather than tell me everything you know about Durkheim and then tell me everything you know about Weber, they kind of merge the two together, so you can talk about things like how the division of labour has changed, or how solidarity has changed, and how that's similar to Weber's ideas about social action, but they differ because of X, Y, and Z. So those essays that are the stronger ones are the ones that can make those similarities very clear and also highlight the differences between these two particular theorists. Please make sure that you answer the question, address the statement, and don't go off topic and talk about other theorists, and don't talk about the studies, because they come in the next portfolio piece, which is the reflective journal. So the reflective journal is slightly different in that it's written in the first person, and it should articulate your own thoughts and feelings about the theories and the studies that we've looked at in working organisations. I've highlighted the point there that you have to include a critical evaluation of Durkheim and Weber's theoretical ideas. So you need to include strengths and weaknesses of where your two theories have gone right or gone wrong, or where they're no longer applicable, or whatever the case might be. You don't have to sort of reiterate what you've said in portfolio piece 3. So let's say, for example, you're going to criticise Durkheim's concept of anime. because he says that it's temporary, but actually it's probably not temporary, because at the moment it could be said that we're living in a period of anomie. You don't have to tell me what anomie is twice. If you've already told me in portfolio piece 3, you don't have to repeat yourself in portfolio piece 4. I'll be looking at them together, so you don't need to waste your word count on repetition. You also have to have critical evaluations from 2 sociological studies. These sociological studies can either support or refute Durkheim and Weber. They can be used to criticise Durkheim and Weber. They could be used to support them. It's entirely up to yourself. In class, I covered Hochschild and feeling rules, and I also covered McDonaldization by Ritzer. You don't have to use those 2 studies. You can use any 2 studies as long as they're relevant, but obviously there is activities and there is resources for you on Blackboard for those 2 studies. The stimulus that you have to address is the nature of work in modern society has the potential for both consensus and conflict. You need to address that point in the question. You have to mention consensus and you have to mention conflict. Again, this piece is worth 750 words. It does say or equivalent because there's you could make a podcast. However, if you make a podcast, you also have to transcribe it so that it can be put through Turnitin for plagiarism reasons. So actually it's doubling the work. So I would suggest that you just write it as sort of your own reflections. This one is also worth 30 marks. And it should also be referenced because you are going to be talking about Durkheim and Weber and 2 studies, so all that stuff should be referenced, but you do not have to reference your own thoughts and feelings. So what I mean by this is, I've actually got this in the next slide, so I'll come back to it. So this is a breakdown of what you need to do. You need to have critical understanding and reflection. You need to be looking at the relationship between work and society and consensus and conflict. And your studies, don't just sort of describe them. You need to make sure that you're supporting or refuting or using them as an evaluation of Weber and Durkheim. Now, of course, you can take into consideration Marx in this piece. You can take into consideration Gilman or feminism in general to critique the other theories, and that's quite an articulate way to do it, whilst also scoring extra points because you're showcasing your knowledge in sociology. Again, in this one, synthesis of ideas and concepts is a really good way forward. It's also better to save your word count. If you can take one idea from, say, Durkheim and criticise it, and then, link that concept with one of Weber's. So let's say, for example, you're talking about how Durkheim shows that working organisations and the division of labour is there for consensus in society. You could then have Weber's ideas about, increased rationalisation being problematic for society, which is also backed up by Ritzer in his study of McDonaldization. So you can see how these things kind of tie up together. It does have to be in the first person. It's a reflective piece, so that means that you talk about yourself. And as I asked in class, the majority of you do work or have worked, so you can take your own reflections about your own experiences in working organisations and bring that in. Otherwise, you can talk about things like using apps on your phone to order food, or Amazon Prime, or ordering McDonald's or whatever, to kind of tie your own personal life into sociology, backing it up by the theories and the studies as well. So this is just a wee bit of an example of how you can do it. You can read through this yourself. I'm not going to read it all out for you. You have to use the first person, so you can say things that like, whilst reading McDonaldization by Ritzer, it felt strangely familiar because I work in a fast food industry and I know how these 4 concepts apply to social life. This is also very much backing up Weber's ideas in society because of X, Y, and Z. So you're kind of integrating your own thoughts and feelings and opinions in with sociological theory and in with sociological studies, whilst critiquing them at the same time. Again, there's some more examples in there. This is on Blackboard, so you can certainly use that. Again, this is the marking rubric that I have to use. I don't know why it says A and B, it should be C and D. And when I'm doing your marking, you will get those words. So unsatisfactory, satisfactory, good, or very good, which will indicate to you where you are on that spectrum. Please do submit a draft if you can, before I come back from Christmas holidays, so that I can provide you some feedback. That will be your only opportunity to give me anything. I'm not going to be marking like I did the last time, and then you can resubmit. Only the people who submit drafts will be able to benefit from the feedback that they'll get from me. Please pop it on the OneNote and send me an email so that I know to check your OneNote for that. If you've got any questions, please send me an email or a message on Teams so that I can clarify for you.